Well, hello, it's Wednesday, so it must be time for Woolly Hats Wednesday Whip, and you join me underneath the damson tree on a lovely September afternoon where there's no rain, not quite as much heat as August, but it's lovely. By the way, the damsons I picked last week have been made into a damson, or were made into a damson trifle, and that was very lovely. However, we're here to talk about knitting and crochet. So what I thought I'd do is talk about these socks that I'm knitting. Now, I showed you these briefly, I think last week or the week before. And this was a sock that was partly knitted by a friend of ours who sadly died a couple of years ago. And her daughter was rummaging through all her crafty things, because she did lots and lots and lots of crafty things, and said, would I like to finish this off? So I said, oh yes, that'd be good. So this project, a friend had knitted the leg and turned the heel, so she was on to the foot. So that was a relatively easy thing, because I know about socks, to finish that off. But there are often times when you might want to finish something off. It might be a project that you've hidden behind the sofa and haven't done for a while, or somebody said, oh, can you help me with this one? So a couple of things to consider are, what's the yarn? Now, obviously, because this was attached to the needles and I knew what it was, it's obviously sock yarn. But sometimes and if the labels aren't there, you might want to know what kind of yarn it is. So there is a way of telling that by wrapping it around a pencil, and then in the number of times it's wrapped around a pencil for the length, it will give you an idea as to whether it's double knit, 4-ply, Aran, chunky, or whatever. And I'll try and put that on underneath the video if I can find it, or social media. So that's a way of telling that. It's more difficult to tell the composition, but usually you can feel if it's a nice got wool in it. Obviously, it's obviously got wool in it because it's a sock yarn and a bit of nylon. So that can be harder to do. And often with a project that's halfway through, you need to make sure that you have a pattern. Now, I know about sock knitting, so I could finish the socks with no problem. But sometimes, if you pick up a project and the pattern has disappeared from the project, that could be a bit more difficult, and will require a degree of investigation. So it's measuring the rows for the cuff, or measuring the length of a jumper, or looking at a pattern if it's got a ferrule one. So that could be more time consuming and may result in perhaps not finishing the project. However, it is an interesting thing to do if you can. And there is actually a charity, and I can't remember what it's called, and I will try and find out what it is, that actually finishes off projects, knitting, crochet, quilting, for people who have died and their families want that to finish, which is quite a nice thing to do. Anyway, enough of that. I'm also going to show you, well, just to say that I do try and limit the number of projects. So if I fall under them and bust tomorrow, then whoever sorts out my stuff won't have to sort out too many too many projects. But normally I'll have an easy project like a sock, but I will often have a more difficult one to do, which is like this one. So this is what I showed you last week. It's a lovely jumper done in Wensleydale long wool yarn that I got from Wonderwool Wales in April. And it's an interesting pattern. It's plain on the back, but the front has got this lovely pattern here. I don't know whether you can see there. So it's got cabling down the side, and you might remember last week I did a slip wrappy stitch instead of a cable stitch, but that is now all sorted out. So a lovely cable, and then there's this bit here. So rather than doing, rather than doing a cable there, which would be as you've done on the side, you still put all the needles on a cable needle, and then wrap the yarn around, and then transfer them back onto the needle and carry on knitting, and then just knit as you would do purl on the reverse thing. So quite a nice and effective little thing. And there's also a bit of lace work in there, so it's got a bit of everything: a bit of lace, a bit of wrapping, a bit of cable, so plenty to keep you occupied. And although I have knitted this while watching television, I've been not watching very complicated television. Poirot, that's quite a nice one, isn't it? So I've progressed quite well. So now I've finished the back and the front, and now I'm on to the sleeves, which is very nice. So that's my knitting project. The other thing I've been doing is I've been crocheting little hats for sticks. Some of you may know I've got a piece of woodland in Wales that Mr. W and I spend quite a lot of time in, and what I wanted to do this year was, in the area that we're working in this year, is put markers so I can take photographs to show how the area changes from month to month. So we've put sticks in, but obviously there are a lot of sticks in a wood, and I wanted to be able to identify where they were. So I've been crocheting with some very bright yellow cotton, some little hats or little to go on. So just using trebles, 3 rows of trebles, and putting them on the top. So that's been quite a fun project to do. And using up some of my stash, and hopefully it will mean that I have lots of good before and after photographs in my woodland, which is also a good thing to do with your projects, to do before and afters. And I do share mine on the website, but on the Facebook fights and things like that. But it is quite a good way to show how you're progressing, and a reminder of what you've done. So next thing on this, as I said, was sleeves, but I will be blocking this. So just a reminder about blocking. In the olden days it would have been called pressing, but nowadays people entice you to buy very expensive blocking mats, or you could use play mats, or I use a thick towel. And what I do is I dampen the piece of work and I pin it out to the measurements that are in the pattern, and especially, well, with wool this works really well, and then let it dry, and that dries nice and flat, and it stops the little sides curling, so when it comes to doing sewing up it's a lot easier to do. So I'll be doing that as well as knitting sleeves, and I'll show you that next week. Just a reminder, I've got my Learn to Crochet classes starting on the 3rd of October. I think my afternoons are now full. The evening class, I've got a couple of sessions. I've also got Learn to Knit on the 12th of October. So if you want to learn to knit, the basics of knitting, that'd be 4 hours of wonderful knitting. And then after half term in November the 9th, I've got a Tunisian crochet workshop. Don't ask me to explain that now. You'll have to come on the course to find out what it's all about. And I shall... Oh, the other thing to remind you is on the 15th of September. It's the second Sunday in September. There's a yarn show in Mould, which is a nice little show. It's organised by Anne, who has Yarn O'Clock, which is a lovely yarn shop. Has some really nice wool in there. And also Kath Andrews has done a lot there as well. And they have lots of local North Wales type wool, people who dye wool, spin it, grow it and knit with it. So that's probably worth something in your diary if you fancy having a go. Anyway, I shall see you next week. I'm not sure where I'll be next week because, as I indicated earlier, I think I was on we're going on a train, so I'm in sock knitting down to South Wales. We're finishing off the coastal path of Wales, and we'll be coming back on Wednesday, so I might do a seaside one. Who knows? You'll just have to wait and see. Right, I hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye for now.